Another year around the sun has me wearing shades. Mover Nation, what's going on? It's my birthday. Thank you so much for joining me. I am still a little under the weather, but it's good to see all of you. I have a lot to catch you up on. I got a new podcast. I got an update on my life. And like I said, it's my birthday. I'm Collier Landry. Let's get into it.
Testimony continued today in the most notorious criminal trial in which Dr. John Boyle is accused of killing his wife, Maureen.
The boy confidently told the jury it was his decision to testify against his father.
I heard a scream. I heard a thud. It's about this loud.
We, the jury, find the defendant guilty.
I decided at an early age that our trauma should not be what defines us. It's what we choose to do with it that does. I'm here to share my unique perspective on true crime, mental health, society, and popular culture, and always with a slight sense of humor. I'm Collier Landry, and welcome to my show. Live from Santa Monica, California, wherever you may be and however you may be watching or listening, thanks for making me a part of your day. Mover Nation, what's going on? What's going on? What's going on? Ho, happy Friday, February 28th. It is my birthday, as I said, and it's so good to have all of you here with me. There's Marisol in the background. She's barking. She'll be joining us very soon. I'll go downstairs and get her so she can say hi to everyone because I know she's probably ready for her treats. And I can hear her growling at me like, why haven't I got my treats, Daddy? And there she is. She's whining away. Marisol, I'll bring you up in 1 second because everybody wants to see you. Cat Loves Catskills, thank you so much for the super sticker. As you guys may or may not have known or seen or noticed, I have not been live for about, close to 2 weeks. I was working on a project, a shoot, and then I got sick, really, really sick. This week I've been, I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was a flu. I have no idea what's happening. I'm somebody who doesn't get sick very often. And, but I definitely got something. I'm still getting over it. My throat is a little scratchy, as you guys can hear. All my stuff is just no. And I just got this new thing for my microphone, which I'm very excited about. My new boom. But yes, I was under the weather. So thank you all for being here. I got a lot to share. Life updates, all kinds of stuff. I got some presents to open, which are right here. I got a purpley sparkly one, and I got a white one. These are from you guys that contributed dollars and dollars with Karen. Thank you so much for the super sticker. So we're gonna get into those in a second. As I said, try to get all that balanced. As I said, it has been a minute since I've been live here, since I've done a podcast episode, and it's not because I haven't wanted to. It's because I've been really busy, and I've also been dealing with some family drama. And I guess I'm going to have to start to explain all of this by sharing something with you guys, which is happening, which is I have a new podcast that is coming out on March 3rd with Sony, and it is called, well, I'll just play the trailer. You guys can check it out, and then we'll get into it.
Boyle was lying awake at night when he heard something horrible. 2 bangs and a scream.
What was going through your mind at that time? What were you thinking?
Where's my mother?
Collier was just 12 when his mother went missing.
She would never, ever leave her children, ever.
Collier wanted answers. His best hope? To team up with a middle-aged detective with a chip on his shoulder.
Well, I got a partner now. Somebody who's going to help me find out what happened to my mother. Me and Dave.
This is the story of the most unlikely detective duo the world has ever seen, and the shocking crime they solved.
It was almost like I was in the middle of a made-for-TV movie because it was so bizarre.
Ernie said, well, Mommy took a little vacation, Collier.
His whole life's a lie.
What if the call was coming from inside the house? From Sony Music Entertainment and Orbit Media, this is Finding Mom's Killer. Coming March 1st to The Binge. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
All right. So it all it all kind of started there. And before we get into it, little Marisol is here. Marisol, come here. Come here, sweetheart. Come here. And everybody wants to see you. There's Marisol. Oh, yes, everybody loves you. Say hi. Hi, everybody. Hi, Mover Nation. Woo, woo, woo. Woo, 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 woo. Okay. All right, puppyins. Now you have your little bully stick. Okay. I'm going to give that to you. All right. I'm going to give that to you, and you can just be occupied. Okay. Marisol is in the building. Okay. So it starts with this podcast. Now, I've been working on this top secretly. I've been working on this since last September. For those of you that have listened to the podcast for a while, I interviewed a group of gentlemen, two gentlemen, in fact, about a case and a podcast that they had done called The Burden from Orbit Media and Sony. And that was back, I want to say, in June of last year. I got a call from a publicist or an email from a publicist saying, hey, I'd like to have you interview these guys. I got you on a couple of shows, could you return the favor kind of thing, right? And I was like, yeah, okay, cool. And I believe if you guys had seen the episode or listened to the audio podcast, it was with Steve Fishman and a guy named, oh God, what is his name? He was an attorney. But they did a podcast called The Burden about Louis Scarcella, who was a corrupt cop in New York City. Cat Loves Catskills, who's on here, she told me a lot about him because she lived in New York at the time that all this was going on, was very familiar with him. And Louis Scarcella was an overzealous detective who then used his power and influence to incarcerate people unjustly, and basically pin cases on people, did a lot of witness tampering, etc. Like, he was doing a lot of good work, and then, as most people, absolute power corrupts absolutely. Pride cometh before the fall, whatever adage you want to add to this, he then succumbed to all of that. So during this interview, if you guys have listened to the episode, I am telling one of them, Steve Fishman, who was the producer of the show and one of the hosts, whose voice you hear on that trailer. I told him a little bit. I mentioned something offhand about my father coming up for parole. And he said to me, he goes, well, why? What are you talking about? Wait, what? And I said, do you not know my story? And as many people who were solicited via email to be on podcasts, they had no idea who I was, what my story was, or anything. So it was very, very, very interesting to see, to hear him say that, because I was like, oh, okay, so you have no idea who I am. Okay, that's great. So as going through all this, I sent Steve Fishman. Now, Steve Fishman he has a journalistic background. He's a journalist, and he also wrote a book about Bernie Madoff, which I found very interesting. And he was one of the people who got Bernie Madoff to confess on how he pulled off his Ponzi scheme scam in prison after he was convicted and sentenced. So he interviewed him and got this really extensive interview with Bernie. And it very fascinating. And I was like, wow, that's some serious stuff right there. I sent him a Murder in Mansfield, my film, and he said, he watched the film and he goes, have you ever done a podcast about this story? I said, well, yeah. I said, I have my podcast, but I've never done like an audio short form, 6 episode, 10 episode series, what have you, right? About the story. And he goes, we have a contract with Sony and we'd like to maybe do something with you. And what kind of story would you like to tell? And I said, well, here's the thing. I said, we've never really discussed how myself and Dave Messmore solved my mother's murder, how we gathered all the evidence, how I, as an 11-year-old, gathered all the evidence with Dave, got Dave to believe me. And together we teamed up to get my father convicted, right? And to, to find the perpetrator and all that stuff, right? Spoiler alert, if you don't know my story. And I was like, I think that's a really fascinating story. And he thought so too. They pitched it to the Sony execs. And to make a long story short, here we are 6, 7, 8 months later with Finding Mom's Killer, which is out on Sony on the binge, out on Monday, March 3rd. So during this whole thing, I had to start to kind of get people that I maybe had in A Murder in Mansfield, didn't have in A Murder in Mansfield, different people who I really wanted to hear from, bring their voices into the show itself. So I set off as in my role of producer, right? Not only am I the central character of all of this, but I am the producer as well, or one of the producers. And we gathered up all my father's letters, all the trial footage. We went through, and interviewed a lot of people. Sent the crew back to Mansfield to interview some people. Dave Messmore is obviously a large part of this podcast as well, as is my father. So one of the things that is been pending in my life and that I have been acutely aware of is the fact that my father is up for parole this year, and that I will no doubt have to do something about that, whatever that is, and coming to terms with it. So it's something I've kind of kicked the can down the road a bit on, but one of the reasons why we decided to sort of open this can of worms is, Steve wanted to talk to my father in the podcast, and I was like, well, let's see what happens. We had him in A Murder in Mansfield. If you've seen the film, you know what that conversation was like. If you haven't, you can purchase it right here. You can get it on Amazon or wherever you choose to get your films from. But you can buy it here and support the channel. As we were making the show and as I was doing, lots of recording, Steve came out here a couple of times. We recorded right downstairs in my living room. We were trying to figure out, okay, how am I going to approach this whole thing and how am I going to get my father involved? So Steve reached out to him in prison. And because I have not had any contact with him in about 5 years since the pandemic. And I said, look, I'm not really super stoked about getting and allowing this man back into my life. But for the sake of the project, I'll entertain it. Right. And Steve reached out to him and he was more than willing to share his side of the story, which I was very surprised. And so Steve interviewed him over the last couple of months. And then came a time for, the sort of dangling of the carrot was, I'd like to have you talk to your father, Collier, and to sort of get my father to talk so I would talk to him. So much to my chagrin, I agreed to do it. And I reached out to my father. This was about 3 weeks ago now. And and it's a wave of emotions. And I've got my little journal up here. I was going to read some stuff from it. It's been a wave of emotions because this is a man who has been very destructive in my life, as you know, and I am very, I was very reticent about opening that line of communication with him, as were other people in my life. But I was like, let's do it for art's sake. Let's see what we can accomplish. So this was, I guess, 3 weeks ago. So I reach out to him and I had to get a new account, and the account that I was using, the prison stopped using it, the service provider. So we had to go to a different service provider, yada, yada, all this red tape that goes through incarceration systems. And I could talk about all this stuff, oh, thanks, Brian. You're 53. You're funny, my friend. No, in all seriousness. So I had to get a new account to and figure out this whole thing. He's now using a tablet to communicate. He probably will try to call here in about 7 minutes, because he tries to call at 3:30 on Fridays because a whole thing has happened. So I reach out to him and they're kind of pressuring me like, hey, have you talked to your dad? Have you gotten on the phone with him? Have you recorded it? And by the way, Cynthia Ann, thank you so much for the super sticker, the birthday sticker. I appreciate it. $20, very generous. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. So I I get an email from him, and I guess I should just read it. Can I do it? I have to do it on the app. I can't do it online. And he's probably emailed me again today since it's my birthday, but I get this email. Oh man, this okay. This is talking about my my birthday, but we're not going to get into all that. Okay. So I get this first email. So let me see. This is before I spoke to him. So I log on. Yeah, this is Super Bowl Sunday. Okay. Collier, very pleased to resume contact with you. Yes, it has been a while, so let's keep up our conversations. I've been keeping my eye on the wildfires as they approach Santa Monica. Glad you are safe, but keep water in the pool. Never know what Gavin Newsom will do. I first asked him, because my father is sort of my genetic petri dish, how his health is. And I'm very curious, because I haven't spoken to him in a while, how he is cognitively. So I get this email, and it says, I am healthy and moving forward. I have been blessed by being selected by ODRC, Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Corrections, to work as a social human services assistant in the transitional program unit, aka the segregation unit, for the past 2 years. Positive impact on the lives of IPs, incarcerated persons. More about that later. So essentially, he works with people who have suffered addiction issues or mental health issues. Yeah, right. I can hear all of you doing the collective sigh. Work with these people in prison. So he gives me my uncle's address. My uncle, who is my father's brother. My Uncle Charles, who was my mother's closest friend, she used to talk to almost every night. And when I remember as a child, and he was my favorite person as far as my family was concerned. My Uncle Charles, I loved him so much. I wanted to be like him. He worked for the Department of the Navy. He worked in submarine technology. He was a consultant for Tom Clancy on his novels because he had so much knowledge of nuclear subs and the way that they worked and all this stuff. He was like a hero of mine. And I loved him, and my mother loved him. And it was very weird because around in the late 80s, he got involved with a woman who ended up becoming my Aunt Gail. And he got involved with a woman. My mother did not like her at all. And I remembered her being she had a lot of weird illnesses. She had a lot of weird, she was just a very strange person. I think that's all I really have to say about that. My mother did not like her. She did not like my mother. So I knew that they were together. And one of the things that and all this is always about closure in my story. And the last time I communicated with my uncle, I haven't seen him since 1998. So he came to visit me when I was in music school. I remember I had this fond memory. We went to go to like an Irish pub, had some, I think we had French dip sandwiches. We did. We had French dip sandwiches. I was a sophomore in music school, and yes, and that's the last time I saw him. Second to last time I saw him. My uncle was very obese, very, very overweight, very, very heavy. He was probably about 5'11" and probably at least 450 pounds, very obese. I mean, his legs were like the size of both my legs, right? And I'm a 6'1", now 215 pounds. I've been losing weight this year, so I'm very pleased about that. He's a big dude, big dude, not very healthy. And I didn't have a lot of contact with him. And the last time I really had any meaningful contact with him was during the pandemic, because my father's prison was overtaken by the National Guard because everybody got COVID, right? All the guards got COVID. So I was dealing with that. And so the last time I actually physically saw him was I had called my grandmother, who's my father's mother. who I loved very much as well. And I would go see her when I was in college. I would drive up. She lived in Youngstown, a million miles away from where I lived, in other part of the state of Ohio. And I would go see her, and I'd take her grocery shopping and take care of her and things like that. And I loved my grandmother very much. And she was very close with my mother. She was the one who was in the house when my mother was killed. A lot of people have a lot of feelings about that. She believed my father was innocent until the very end. But I called up for her, and my little cousin, who is not so little anymore, who was adopted recently from India, she picked up the phone. I said, hi, Rupa is Grammy, who I'd never met before. I said, Rupa, can I speak to Grammy? And she goes, Nana died. Nana died. And that was how I found out my grandmother died. My Uncle Charles never called me. No one ever told me. No one ever alerted. She then goes and gets my aunt Mimi, who then gives the phone to my Uncle Charles. And he just tells me, oh, yeah, she passed away. And I was like, okay, was anybody going to call me? Well, we didn't want to bother you. This is my family. Just, they're strange. So I get on the phone with my Uncle Charles, and I was like, why didn't anyone, let me know about this? And I said, when was her funeral? And he goes, well, it's today. We're having the services today. So I had to drive from the other side of the state to go to this funeral. I was not very happy. I was very much, and my relationship with my uncle was such that he was supposed to adopt me. He was my godfather. And he told me the contingency to adopt me was that I had to recant my testimony against my father and say that I made everything up. He actually came out of the woodwork after my father was convicted, saying that he saw my mother in person outside of his office in Washington, D.C., which was utterly fanciful. I remember and it's probably, I think we talked about it in the film A Murder in Mansfield. I'm sure we talk about it in this podcast as well, but Dave Messmer recalls when the judge told him to shut up and leave the courtroom, or he was going to hold him in contempt because of what he was saying, which was things like my mother was still alive after my father had been convicted for her murder. So that was one of the things. And to say that this haunted me my entire life is an understatement. I didn't have much contact with him when I was adopted. He would pop in every once in a while around the holidays because he'd come in town to see his mother, my grandmother. And so he might swing by my adopted parents' house and we might go get something to eat really fast. But he might call occasionally on holidays, but just not a whole lot of anything. And we were rather estranged, and it continued to be so for the rest of my life. So, around the first time my father was up for parole, which was 2010, he called me and he asked me if I could pay for my father's lawyer to help him with his parole case. And I remember thinking to myself, like, first of all, I'm an artist. I have no means whatsoever to do that. And I just was thinking to myself, this is absolutely ludicrous. And I said to him, I said, I have no money. I don't have a pot to wee in it or a window to throw it out of. I'm an artist, And I was explaining this to him, and I said, can't you? I mean, you make a great salary from the Navy. Can't you help him? And he said, no, that he couldn't because of terms with the Navy. I wanted to put my headphones on so I can hear better. So he wanted to do that because, he wanted to make sure he couldn't because of his contract with the Navy, which I thought was really suspect to begin with. But that's neither here nor there. So I, of course, did not pay for my father's parole back in 2010. I had no money to do so. I had no interest in doing so. I actually did advocate for his release at the time because everyone else was not going to advocate for his release. And I knew that there was no chance he was going to get out. And I did it to curry favor with my father because I wanted him to participate in any project that I was going to do with my life. And I knew that by doing that, I knew there was absolutely no way he was getting out. And I lived in California, and I wouldn't have been able to take custody with him anyways. I was in no financial position, nor am I still, to do that. But I thought, okay, and I've talked about this on this podcast before. And So that's sort of where it all left. And I didn't hear from my uncle for many, many years. And I would reach out to him. I had his phone number. He wouldn't call me back. Sometimes I reached out to his email. He would get, he might get back to me, he might not. It just was weird. And it was like, here was somebody who was so close to my mother, who was so important to her and was so important to me, mind you. And I just thought, I just have no clue why this man does not want me in his life. I was his godson. And I had this thing, my mother had this declaration that used to hang on our wall, and I've got it probably somewhere in storage, but it was called the Ode to Collier Landry Boyle. And it was something that he wrote at my christening. I'm from a Catholic background. My family, Irish Catholic, Italian Catholic, they took Catholicism very seriously. And so I did all the things, but I was obviously baptized in the church. And this was during my baptism and ode or when I was born or whatever. There's some ceremony. I think it's my baptism. And it was a big ode, it was a big, long thing, which was very beautiful, but how he was going to be my protector should anything happen to my parents, and how he'd always look out for me, and how he loved me more than anything, and et cetera, et cetera. So, this is the sort of relationship that I have had in my head. Like, why could you never be there? So fast forward to the pandemic, when I get a phone call from him, or an email actually, saying that my father's prison was taken over by the National Guard, that my father was sick with COVID, was in the infirmary, and I needed to get a hold of him. And so I called my uncle, and we talked, and he sort of did the whole thing that he would always do, which every time we would talk, he'd be like, "Oh yeah, so how are things going?" Very, very, very like just word salady, vapid conversation, what have you. Not about any real substance, oh, how you doing out there? Oh yeah, it's bright and sunshiny out there. Hey, do you ever go to Carl's Jr.? You never, which is Hardee's back east, but we have Carl's Jr. out here. I don't eat fast food. It's garbage. No offense if anyone does. I don't eat it. It's in my opinion, it's garbage. But he would always ask me about fast food. I was like, Uncle Charles, I don't eat fast food. So I don't know what to tell you. But I was very disturbed with the fact that he just kind of always blew me off. And this was after, Murder in Mansfield had come out. It hit streaming services in 2020 or 2021, actually. And I just, sorry, my throat is getting dry. Like I said, I had this throat issue all week, and I've been sick with the flu, which whatever, I don't know what it is, but at the time it was the pandemic. I was living with some roommates. We all got a house during the pandemic, and all of us were up to no good. Full on pandemic, drinking, partying. It was, not a good mix. Which was one of the things that caused me to decide, I'm going to get sober. But I was half in the bag. And when I was talking to him, I was like, okay. And I decided to call him back and just sort of let him have it. Voice to him my displeasure of why he was never in my life. Like, what is wrong with you? Like, what my mother meant so much to you, and you meant so much to my mother. How did all of this, how did we get here? Like, how do we get to this point where you just don't give a shit about me? And I'm half in the bag, and I just lay into him. And I lay into him about abandoning me as a child, his ultimatums about recanting my testimony so I could live with him, holding that over my head. And not adopting me. And he lived in Washington, D.C. I wanted to go live with him. He lived in Georgetown. That's cool. I was into it. I remember when I go visit him, how excited I would be. So I said, here's the thing that bugs me the most. It's like, why won't you just say to me, listen, asshole, I don't like what you did. I think you put your father in prison. I think you did this, or I think you're wrong about this, or I was like, why did you give up on me? Like, why did you give up on our relationship? I don't understand that, and as I said, I'm half in the bag, and I'm just like, I'll say whatever. I was like, can I just even get a fuck you from you? Like, can I even just get some emotion from you? And he's like, well, fuck you, or blah, 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 I was like, good, get it out. Please, this is the most emotion I've ever heard from you in 25 years. So, you know, and we ended it with like, you know, I was like, look, despite what we've been through, like, I want to have a relationship with you. I love you. You are my uncle. You're like the last surviving connection to my mother and to my life and all of this. And, you know, I've only done things to honor my mother, to honor my family, to really do what was right. So, you know, we end the conversation, you know, I was like, I really hope I hear from you again. I hope we can open up this line of communication, this line of dialogue. I would love to hear from you. You know, I was like, I love you. I love you. And he's like, I love you too. You know, okay, let's do that. I never heard from him again. A couple of years ago, I was talking to my aunt, my father's sister, and I had found out that, and she watches this podcast. She listens to the podcast. She follows me on Facebook, the whole thing, right? And she mentions to me that CJ, or his name was Charles Joseph Boyle, the third. She mentions to me that he had moved out to Phoenix area with his wife, my Aunt Gail, a couple of years ago. And so I live in Los Angeles, and Phoenix is about a 6-hour trip, not far at all. I was like, oh, that's really weird. They move out there. I don't hear from him. And she had said, you know, he didn't want you to know where he lived and did not want you to have his phone number, which was kind of hurtful, but also just not, I guess, not surprising. So, I get an email, flash forward to February 8th, 2025. And I'm corresponding with my father about talking to him on the phone about this podcast, this whole thing, right? I get an email from him, and it says, Collier, prayerfully you are well. Sadly, your Uncle Charles is very ill. My last information was from 1/29/2025 via Aunt Mimi, which is my father's sister. Letter, if you are able, please contact her and get a current status on Uncle Charles. Here is the info for him. And he was at a post-acute and rehabilitation facility in Peoria, Arizona. They gave me the numbers. I called both, etc. He said, Gail may not be there. Collier, CJ may not know who you are, so please be patient with him and explain. I think Gail has closed his personal cell phone. So we talked a little bit about the Super Bowl because my relationship with my father before murder, Mansfield, and probably now after is all very surface. I don't really talk about the nitty gritty with the, you know, about the murder or anything like that. I talk about sports, girls. I recently got my blood work done last week. I had him review my blood work because he still is a doctor, and he was a very good doctor, not a very good human, but a very good doctor. So I review my blood work and ask him questions about things like that because I was freaked out by this diagnosis. So I reach out to my aunt, and it turns out that my uncle had metabolic encephalopathy, and basically he was in a facility. This was as of the 29th of January, where he was essentially, he was in an acute rehab, which is not where he needed to be. Apparently, from what she had gathered, is that he had fallen in the shower. She spoke to him on Christmas, and he sounded fine. He had a little bit of a throat thing, but he was fine. So he had fallen in the shower and apparently hit his head. And apparently he had taken the car and driven about 100 miles away from his wife. And she was irate because apparently, unbeknownst to me and unbeknownst to anyone, he was her caretaker. Now she's 10 years younger than he was. And apparently was found by police in Arizona muttering on the side of the road, very confused as to where he was. They took him to the emergency room, then they put him in this acute care facility 100 miles away from where he lived, which apparently made my aunt, his wife, very upset. And she was livid because she had nobody to take care of her. My aunt, his sister, had been calling every day to try to talk to him, but was also trying to talk to my uncle's wife and to try to really find out what is going on here, what is really happening with CJ. And she basically started saying, well, he's not doing well, and I'm going to. I've started emptying out his closets. Now, apparently, my uncle and his wife lived in separate bedrooms in this very large house that they had purchased in Arizona, a suburb of Phoenix, and had separate bedrooms and separate closets and probably separate lives. And I'm sure it wasn't very good. So wasn't, they weren't leading the best life. Or at least in my opinion, I have no idea. I'm not involved in their life, but it just doesn't sound like a great relationship to me. So she was saying to my aunt, well, I'm selling the house. He's going to die. And I'm just going to, I'm not going to the facility. He left me. Could you come out and be my caretaker? This is to my aunt and my cousin who live in Ohio, would they fly out to Arizona and be her personal caretakers, while my uncle is essentially in a facility. And I finally got a hold of this facility that he had transferred to. And among all this, I'm like, look, okay, now I'm involved in this whole thing. Ugh, oy vey. If anything deserves an oy vey, it's this. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, this is just not the mess that I want to step back into. This is my family. But then I think about the real thing that sort of motivates pretty much everything I've done in my life, which is, what would my mother think? What would my mother do? What would my mother say? My mother would say, Collier, go help your uncle. Which, was something I was definitely very willing to do. But I'm like, how do I do this whole thing? So, and I'm getting information from my father's sister. She's very concerned and she can't get him on the phone. So he was being transferred to a newer facility, which was an assisted living facility. But this is all stuff I've learned in the last week and a half. When you're transferred to an assisted living facility, the reason that you're transferred there is you just need assistance living, mind the pun. You just need to be assisted. It means you have function and you can do things, but you just need help, go to the bathroom or getting your meals made or any of these types of things, right? Not the condition that my uncle was in. So, I guess his wife did not show up the first day that he arrived at the facility, and he was, and I guess you have to sign them in. It was a whole thing. So she finally showed up the next day. But I was like, I need to go and see my uncle, because that's what my mother would have wanted me to do. And that's what I want to do. And from what I could gather, he was going to die alone. My uncle was not going to have his wife by his side or have any of his family. And I can't think of anything worse than dying alone, right? And I felt, despite whatever was going on in my family, I felt very beholden to let's make that, let's do something about this. And it's 6 hours away. It's nothing to jump in the car and go do this. So I actually told my father, I said to him, and I told my aunt, I said, look, I'm going to go out there. And I said, how do you think I should approach this? And I thought to myself, okay, his wife needs a caretaker. So I'm going to reach out and say, okay. So I text her and I say, hi, Gail. I heard about Charles. How can I help you? How can I be of assistance to you? I'm 6 hours away in LA. I can jump in the car. What can I help you with? Now, I'm a good person. Was that really what I wanted to do? No, I wanted to see my uncle. I wanted to be there for my uncle, to see him in the room, and at very least put eyes on him, say goodbye. If he's going to pass away. And that's what I wanted. And just, and she had been talking about how she had these family heirlooms of ours, photographs, a gold pocket watch that was my great grandfather's, some cufflinks, things that my father's sister was like, go get those things. Make sure you get those. And I was like, okay. I reach out to her and I say, how can I help you? All this stuff. She writes back 20 minutes later. Why? Why? So I wrote back and I said something to the effect of, because we're family and because you're ill, you need help. Charles needs help. And I'm 6 hours away. It's nothing for me to come out there. I'm an able-bodied person. I can come help you. Let me help you. No response. I call her up. And when somebody hangs up on you, because it rings, and click, she hung up on me. Said, do not call me again. That's all it said. You are not welcome here. So I call the care facility that he had gone to, which I joked with my aunt because I said it was called, they were in Surprise, Arizona. It was called Crescent Surprise. And I said, it sounds like a dim sum restaurant. Crescent Surprise. Thank you for calling Crescent Surprise. No, in all seriousness, how can I take your order? And I spoke to the guy there and he was very nice. And I said, look, I'm his nephew, I'm his godson. I live in Los Angeles. I'm pretty close. I would like to come see him or at least speak to him on the phone. I said, how is he? And they said, well, he's in very serious cognitive decline. We've gotten him eating, but he doesn't know, he knows his name and he knows his date of birth. He does not know time, space, place. He doesn't know where he is. He doesn't know what the date is. He doesn't know any of that. He just knows his name and when he was born. Which is apparently, as I was gathering, because I started reading the medical reports, because my aunt got a copy of those from his wife. But basically, she pawned him off on this facility. And then I reached out to come help. She took all of his stuff, everything, all his photographs, all our family heirlooms, everything, gathered them up in trash bags and disposed of them. And claimed she was doing this and she was selling a house because she needed to look out for herself. And this really broke my heart because, again, I thought my uncle would deserve more than that. And granted, he wasn't the best person in my life the last 30 years-ish. But I have fond memories of him as a child, and he was very close to my mother. Despite whatever happened, it does not matter. So I called this guy. I spoke to him. He was explaining to me his thing, and he was very cordial with me. And I said, look, if I drive out there, will you let me see him? And he said, yeah, absolutely. I said, thank you so much. I said, I'm not far away. I'm going to pack some stuff up and head out that way. And he goes, well, do you by chance have any power of attorney? And I said, no, I don't. I don't have power of attorney. Why? And he goes, well, Gail has power of attorney. And I said, okay. Again, I just want to go see my uncle. So he said, well, let me call you back. And so he called me back and he goes, about less than 5 minutes later, he goes, yeah, Collier, I'm really sorry. I just spoke to Gail and I could hear her in the background. And she said you are not welcome here and you are not to call and you are not to show up. And she has executed her power of attorney for us to bar you from the facility. Then what she proceeded to do is she barred his sister, my aunt, and her son from calling anymore to the facility because they were able to call and talk to him. She said they could only come in person. So, and there was no way that my aunt is not in the shape to travel. Yeah. So one of the things I learned about the end of life, and this is something, and I'm reflecting on this because it is my birthday, right? And I'm very confident I have many years ahead of me. And talking to my father and reconnecting with him, I have discovered that if I follow in that man's footsteps cognitively, I will be okay till I'm well into my 80s, because he is still sharp as a tack. Like, he hasn't missed a beat. But one of the things I came to find out is, and my uncle, eventually he stopped eating and he stopped responding altogether. The last thing when a person is going through their end of life transition is the last thing to go is their hearing, which means that we're in a room and, if you're in the room with somebody, they can hear you. That's the last thing that goes. And this makes sense to me because I had a friend, Eric Rogers, who was a good friend of mine. We did a lot of business together, a lot of work. He was a total maniac, total nut job, but a good soul. We're all fallible, that's for sure. But I do have many fond memories of Eric. Eric passed away from cancer in 2021. Now he had been living with cancer for probably like 13 years. He was in an experimental program. He was in a experimental control group, and he was the last surviving member of his control group. And but he succumbed. And I remember I went to see him the day before they took him off life support, and he was intubated, the whole thing, and obviously couldn't respond. But his brother, I went with his brother, and his brother said, "Hey, Eric, Collier's here." And he went like this. Like excited. So when it was explained to me that during end of life, you can still always hear and you're aware. I've seen it happen firsthand with my friend, God rest his soul, before he passed away. And I think for me, I just wanted to have that moment with my Uncle Charles, to say goodbye, to maybe say, I forgive you for everything. Maybe to say, hey, if you see my mother on the other side, give her a hug for me, give her a kiss. Something like that. I don't know why things happen the way they do in life. But things are, life is complicated, to say the least. Something I'm very well aware of. But it would have meant a lot to me to say that goodbye. And on at 12:30 Eastern time on February the 19th, Charles Joseph Boyle III, my Uncle CJ, passed away. And it's kind of hard to articulate all this. And so for those of you that have been like, where's Collier? What's going on in his life? That's been one of the things. And I think it really, I was talking with my therapist about this. One of the things that really sort of affected me, I think, was just, and I said to my father, because he was like, well, this doesn't make any sense with all this. And I said, Dad, this is what I talk about. This is the consequences of violence. This is what happens when the shit hits the fan. This is it. And I said, and also his wife hated my mother. So of course she didn't want me around. It would have meant a lot to be able to say goodbye. And I would have been okay with doing that. I would have been all right with that. Families are complicated, man. Families were really complicated. And I had to break the news to my father in prison via a message on an app. And yeah. Yeah. Anyways. Now, as many of you know, who've watched this program, who have listened to this program, I am a glass half full guy. I have been my entire life. So I, of course, have a sunny side, flip side to the story. Because, mind the pun, out of the phoenix comes the ashes, right? No pun that my uncle was in Phoenix or Phoenix area. So about, well, one of the things that's actually been very, if you could say cool, is that I've had this renewed communication with my father's sister and even my cousin, who is a couple years older than me. He actually messaged me last night. Hey, happy early birthday, cuz, first person to message me. And I was like, well, thank you. That's like really thoughtful of him. That's my cousin Raja. And, I've had this whole thing and I was going through it with my father's sister, my Aunt Mimi. Because she was trying to reconcile, like, why is this happening? And as she said, she's like, now Jack has 2 deaths on his hands, And I started finding out all of this stuff about conversations with my uncle that were had in my absence. Because my Aunt Mimi would say to him, why don't you have any communication with Collier? Why don't you reach out to him? Why haven't you talked to him? You were so close with Noreen, my mother. Why haven't you had any communication with him? Why have you chosen to not do that? And, my uncle firmly believed that my father was innocent. Now, call it my father's gaslighting since he was incarcerated or what have you, or this manipulation or whatever it is. He was firmly believed in my father's innocence. And, my Aunt Mimi had said to him, Collier made a movie. Collier's a podcast. Collier's a YouTube channel. You should check it out. He said, no, I'm not interested. No, I'm not interested. No, I'm not interested. And one of the things that she told him was, she said, in the documentary, Collier got Jack to confess to killing Noreen. It's there in the movie. You can watch it. He confesses to killing her. Now, it's not the way that, we all understand it to be, but he does confess to being responsible for her death or causing her death. And my uncle didn't say anything to her on the phone. And every time she would bring this up, apparently, he would he would push, kick the can down the road, or just wouldn't talk about it at all, or me at all. But one of the things I had found out, and one of the things that I lived with for so long as a child, is because when he had asked me and told me to recant my testimony as a condition of me living with them, and I felt for so long that I was responsible for fracturing that relationship in a way of like, I rejected him and said, I don't want to live with you. And that hurt his feelings. So therefore he's behaving like this because I hurt his feelings. So I never shared this with anybody. Well, now I've shared it with all y'all, but I never shared this with anybody. But it was always in the back of my mind. Like, did I do something to cause this? Because that's just the person I am. I must have done something wrong. It couldn't be because they're fucked up. It's because I did something wrong. So I had this whole like sort of delusional sort of way of thinking of that. Like, oh, I was responsible for him not being in my life. I ended up finding out that his wife, my Aunt Gail, forbade him or forbode him or whatever you call it from adopting me, from fulfilling my mother's request from her will of him taking custody of me. She said, if you bring that child into our house, I will divorce you. I will leave you. So that was wild. So then I get a wild hair in my ass. And I had gotten this email back in end of December. Now, in December, I was going through a very wacky relationship sort of thing. I was very distracted by that. Last year's 2024 was a bad relationship year for me with women, and it just was like not good, and just oy vey. If anything deserves an oy vey, that deserves an oy vey, that's for sure. So I was not in a good place, but I received this email from my cousin, who is on my mother's side, who is the oldest of my Aunt Carol's siblings. And I was like, I didn't respond to it because I was going through this like very crazy relationship break. I don't even know what was happening in it. Breakup, just re-break up. I don't know. I was not in a good space. And I totally forgot about it. But on the morning that CJ died, I said, I'm going to reach out to my cousin. And I did. And she got right back to me. And we had this whole conversation for like an hour, which was super cool. And I was surprised to know that she had seen my film. She was very proud of what I had done with my life. She discovered my podcast because her boss at American Express, his wife listens to the podcast and was talking about me in the office. And and you know, this guy Collier he had this crazy story, and she's like, that's my cousin. I mean, what are the odds? Small world, right? So I'm talking about Charles, and about 3 months ago, I have a second cousin, or however that works, who was doing a family tree of my mother's side of the family. And we were talking, we reconnected. He had been diagnosed with a blood cancer, so he was kind of MIA for a while. He surfaced, and he was like, I'm so sorry. I was like, no, you're dealing with cancer. Come on, man. Like, it's all good. And we were talking about my Aunt Carol, and I said, and he goes, yeah, she passed away in a couple of years back. And I was like, oh, I was like, that's a bummer, but I also haven't seen my aunt since 1998, ironically, around the same time I saw my uncle. Last saw my uncle. Both my godparents, actually. And I was really saddened by that, because I was like, wow, I couldn't have made peace with her either. Couldn't have spoken to her. And now I've lost both godparents, that's what I'm thinking. Both connections to my mother, really, one by blood and one by just friendship and compassion and history. So I'm on the phone with my cousin, and I'm talking about Charles a little bit. Thank you for the super sticker, Gen X to the 7th power. And I'm talking to my cousin, and I sort of just kind of lament. I'm like, I said, this whole thing with CJ, my father's uncle, or my father's brother, rather, my uncle. So it really got me thinking, and it's, I'm just it's such a shame, because I really would have liked to have said goodbye to my Aunt Carol, when she passed away. And it sucks. It's just a, it really, it's a bummer that I could have had that closure, and I can't now. And then my cousin says to me, she goes, that's weird. Unless she died in the last 12 hours, your aunt, my mother, is very much alive. And I'm supposed to speak to her in the next 48 hours. So as I said, I'm always a glass half full, sunny side up, always look on the bright side of life type of guy. Perpetual optimist. I am my mother's son through and through. Out of losing one side of my family, I've now reconnected with the other. That's all I got for y'all today. That is my life update for the last hour. What I've been going through, what's going to happen. And I will keep y'all totally informed. Now, because we are on the YouTubes, and I would normally sign off, and that's where I would leave it. But since it is my birthday, we have some presents that we are going to open. Marisol, are you ready for presents? I feel like we should do like some music now to take everybody. Sorry, guys. We're going to totally flip modes. And now we're going to be in, hey, it's my birthday type thing. Yeah, so there might be some presents at the mailbox too, but 2 of these had come in and I wanted to open them here live on air. A beautiful purple sparkly box, which is from Amber Winnell. And I'm going to open that. Marisol. Okay, she's still working on her bully stick. I want to make sure she didn't eat the whole thing, because remember last time she ate the whole thing. So now we're going to get into fun stuff. And let me just look through your comments. And thank you so much to everybody who gave the super stickers. Wow, my voice is really hoarse. Like, I do not sound good. This is a voice for radio, not can't believe I said that. Oh boy. Woof. Let's see if I get that better. All right. Yeah, there we go. I just got this new boom arm too. So I'm very excited. Because the last one broke, if you guys remember. Broke live on air. Yeah, so now this is okay. I should probably not futz with this one. Yeah, so anyways, this was on special on Amazon. And I was like, oh, half off? Let's get it. All right. So this first present comes from, let's put on some music. A little background music. But let's go through the super stickers. Thank you so much to Cynthia Ann for the super sticker. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much. Marie Hathaway, thank you so much for the super sticker. Helen Tudor Douglas, thank you so much for the generous super sticker. Is it my 47th? No, it is not. I am still in my 30s. I'm also a really bad liar. Close, yes. I hope I got the number right. Sending love and support and smiles your way. My mother I never knew how old my mother was until I read her obituary. She was 6 years older than I realized she was. Your uncle knows you loved him. Thank you so much. Cat Loves Catskills for the super sticker. Nesty, thank you so much. Sending love from your non-biological family. Dockets and Dollars with Karen. Thank you so much for gifting 5 Collier Landry memberships. Gen X to the 7th power. Thank you so much for the $10 super sticker, super chat, big birthday hugs. And from Cat Loves Catskills, Noreen's son, love the birthday boy. Cat Loves Catskills, thank you for the $5 sticker as well. Happy birthday, Collier with the shamrock. And Dockets and dollars with Karen. Thank you. Happy birthday to you. Thank you so much. You guys are all awesome. Okay, so now presents. Okay. I hope this doesn't require a lot of effort to like open this. This is from Amber and Brandon. Amber Winnell sent this to me. And we're gonna open that up. We gotta make room on the desk for these packages. My goodness. All right. Anyways, beautiful purple wrapping paper. It's been sitting in the corner of my living room, and every time the sun comes in at a certain time of day, it reflects off there, and it makes this beautiful purple, like sparkly, collage on my floor. It's amazing. It will be missed. Maybe I'll just save the paper for that. I hope you guys like my life update. I hope it wasn't too. I think it was actually a pretty in-depth thing. It's like, why so serious? All right. Oh, music. Hold on. Music. Let's go here. Let's see if we got. I don't know. Dance pop. Nope. Yeah, let's have this. Okay, let's try this. All right, this sounds appropriate for birthday music. I'm going to take these headphones off too. All right. All right, it's from Amber and Brandon. I don't really know what to say about this. Vinyl Cymax exam gloves. Maybe that's just the box it's in. Maybe that's just the box it's in. Let's see. Is Amber on here, by the way? I don't see her. I saw her earlier. Oh, there she is. Like, I mean, that sounds like I remember I gave like something like when I was younger. I gave somebody like a box of surgical gloves and a jar of Vaseline, and I was like, "It's for your party," and they were legitimately creeped out. I thought it was funny. Oh, Marisol, you think it's for... Marisol thinks it's for her. Yeah, you're not doing that. No, ma'am. No. All right. Surgical gloves? Probably not. Damn. All right. It's a box inside of a box. It's like those Russian dolls. Oh, look at this. Oh, hold on. There's a card. Look at the card first. Okay. Oh, there's something else here. Okay. Oh, there's all kinds of shit. What's happening? Okay, well, check this out. Oh, mug and dog toy. All right. Oh my God, this looks hilarious. Mug and dog toy, modern expressions. Pet me noir, stay positive. I like this. How cute is that? Can we see this? Aw. Thank you so much, Amber. That's super sweet. I like that. Pinot Pet Noir. Wow. Marisol, you got a toy. You got a toy. And then this little dude. Oh, is this Positive Potato? I have a Positive Potato as well. Positive Potato. Look at that. I may be a tiny potato, but I believe in you. Go and do your thing. Oh, thank you so much. I'm going to put that right here next to Cat Loves Catskills in Nesha that she got me for Christmas. Super cool. Right up here on my speaker. Oh, I love that. Thank you. That's very sweet. Oh, but here's the thing. Hold on. Time to celebrate. All right. Collier, here's to a birthday filled with joy and a year ahead that's filled with success and happiness. May your birthday be as extraordinary as you are. So many people, including us, are beyond inspired by your spirit, your perseverance, and your heart. Keep inspiring us. Let this birthday mark the beginning of a fantastic journey that leads you to an even more amazing future. You've got this, my dude. Love, Amber and Brandon Winnell. Aw, look at this. How sweet that is. Thank you so much. And I love elephants, as everyone knows. I love elephants and Ganeshas. All right. Now we have this. Does this have peanuts in it? Oh, boy. Marisol. All right. I guess I'm going to download a birthday song, huh? Oh! Now, for those of you who didn't know, members of Mover Nation purchased me an Espresso Virtuo last year for Christmas. No, you can't eat that. Hey, come here. You can't have that wrapping paper. Look, she got the wrapping paper. This little jerk. No, you can't have that. It's not good for you. Got me an espresso machine. So Amber and Brandon got me Nespresso capsules. Because just what I need is more caffeine. Oh, I'm so excited. Stormio, Audacio, Altiso, which, Intenso, Diavolito, which all these are awesome. Thank you so much. No peanuts. They were coffee capsules. I love it. Thank you so, so much. It's so kind of you. How fabulous is that? Cannot wait. I'm not going to have it tonight, though. I won't sleep. All right. So, next present. Oh. Okay, Marisol. You can't have that. Come here. No, you can have this out. You have this. She got into my bag. Okay. Next present. I don't know who this is from. Tara Strickland from Oak Hill, Ohio. Thank you, Tara Strickland. I don't know what your handle is here on YouTube or not. Oh, I gotta blow my nose. Tara Strickland, thank you so much. Okay, exciting stuff. Let's see here. Package, woohoo! All right. All right, somebody's trying to unwrap things that are not hers to unwrap. Hey, come here. You can't have that either. No. She's like, you're not paying attention to me, Daddy. Oh, snap. What is this? Oh, this might be something to keep her occupied. Oh, look at this. Oh, a crinkle ducky. Marisol. It squeaks too, probably. Oh. Where's your camera? Nope, there it is. Marisol, you got a ducky. Let's see if we can add this. Oh, yep. Yep. There we go, Marisol. Oh, yep, there you are. Okay. Now we got to figure out how we're going to keep this camera up. Okay. I will take. This is so cool. Pink ducky because it's cute and Marisol will love it, it says. Pink ducky because it's cute and Marisol will love it. She absolutely did. She absolutely will. Let's see here. All right. Marisol. Oh, she's funny. Oh, she's funny. Marisol, my son. Oh, she's getting a kick out of it. She is. Thank you so much to Tara Strickland for that. From Oak Hill, Ohio. Okay. We'll remove that for a second. All right. Now my present, I think. All right. Ugh. Oh, maybe more presents for her. Damn, lots of stuff. This is awesome. Oh, I love this. Okay. Oh, wow. We got, okay. Dog puzzle treats. Okay, let's see here. Dog puzzle mat and little treats because it looks fun. Just hide the tiny treats in the mat and let Marisol go to work finding the treats. Oh, how cute is this? So we have a bag of treats, puzzle bites. Oh, now she wants the treats. Now she's over here for the treats. And here's the puzzle mat. Oh, how fun is this? Look at that. How cute is that? Oh, Marisol. You got all kinds of stuff. Wow. Spoil. How cool is this? That's amazing. All right, here's something that I probably really do need. Conquer self-sabotage for men. Are you your own worst enemy? For too long, men have been conditioned to believe that success means never showing weakness. But what if the very beliefs that are supposed to drive you forward are the ones that are holding you back? All right, I'm going to read this. And this says, a book. See, because I know in a couple of your videos, you mentioned that you self-sabotage, but do you really? Or is it a higher power warning you about a situation or shooting you a red flag about the situation? Love, T. Thank you so much. There's a whole letter, which I will not read just in case it's very personal. So I will read that. was very, very sweet, though. Thank you so much. That is from Tara Strickland. Okay. And then, oh, this is super sweet. What is this? Oh, wow. A journal and wooden pens with refills because they say journaling changes your life for the better. I am going to start journaling too. Okay, I'm going to try real hard, but I'm serious. Oh, this is so cool. Look how sweet this is. Thank you so much. Pens and everything. This is awesome. Wow. Little wooden pens. Oh, wow. Look at this. I got coffee. I'll drink the coffee and then I'll just start writing away. This is fantastic. Oh my goodness. Man, my voice is really hoarse. That's too funny. Marisol, this is not for you. She thinks everything's for her. Of course you do, because it pretty much is all the time. Well, thank you so much to Tara Strickland. Tara Strickland, Amber Winnell, you guys are amazing. And thank you all, Mover Nation. Thank you guys so much for all the super stickers, all the wonderful presents. I think there's a couple more at the mailbox that I haven't seen yet. This is really cool. Thank you all so much. You made my birthday so special. You made my birthday so special just by being here, to be honest with you. So I appreciate that. I appreciate all of you being here and just, this is amazing. All right. I think I'm about ready to lose my voice, which is what it sounds like. So I'll just close with this. So I hope that, the story about my uncle is, that you guys found, it's very true. And I wanted to just be real with you guys because of my audience of like what I've been going through lately, but also just, to also give you the sunny side up version, which is just that, hey, look, that I go through real things and that I've just, this is my life and I love sharing and I want you guys to be included in that as I always do. And I always include all of you in my life. And I'm sorry I haven't been on. And like I said, I haven't been, as you can tell from my voice, I haven't been feeling so great. But I'm grateful for everyone that's been here. Black Widow, thank you so much. Happy birthday for the happy birthday membership member for 20 months. Nesty, thank you so much for the $10 super sticker. It says happy 30th birthday from Jet and myself. Yes, 30th birthday. I love this. I love this outlook. But anyways, I hope that you guys found, and Zet, who's here. We have these wonderful moderators. We have Zet, we have Cat Loves Catskills, Amber Winnell, Karen Fan, who's Karen. I don't know your new handle. Gen X's Seventh Power. Zet sang me a song on my voicemail this morning. It was so sweet. I really appreciate it. Our OG Nightbot holding it down as well. Thank you to all the mods that were here. Guys, I'm so sorry I haven't been here. Joan Beckler, thank you for being here. Shout out to all of you for joining me on my birthday, on the actual birthday. It means the world to me. And that's all I pretty much, have to say, as I always do say, Mover Nation, we do get through another one. I hope that you enjoyed today's episode. If you would, please listen on Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast from. You guys can rate, review, give me a 5-star review. Also, please check out my latest podcast, Finding Mom's Killer from Sony. That launches on Monday, March 3rd. I hope you guys can check it out. On that note, I'm Collier Landry. I'll see y'all on the next one. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to support today's program, please click the links in the description of the show notes of today's episode. And if you like this video, check out this one right here or this one right here. And don't forget to like and subscribe because it helps with the algorithm. On that note, I'm Collier Landry. I'll see y'all on the next one. Good girl, Marisol. Good girl.